Today I'm going to tell you a story that'll make you either laugh or cry, depends which way you take it, of a homeless man who makes over $2,000 a day in the nation's capital, Ottawa, Ontario, Canada. You're going to really enjoy this one. Michael McLean, brassballsvideos.com. I am an ex-professional hockey coach, ex-amateur championship hockey coach, turned 8-figure entrepreneur. You can download a free copy of my brand new book, 5 Ways to Unfuck Your Life in the Next Month. The link is below. It's my free gift to you. Admittedly, this book is not every businessman's cup of whiskey. It's for champions, not for chumps. Winners, not whiners. If you're interested, the link is below. It's about 22 pages. You can read it in one sitting. My free gift to you. If you're having any issues getting your shit together like I have from time to time over the last 30 some years, this is the book that'll help you turn things around in your favor. So I shot a video yesterday about the state of affairs on the city streets in Canada, bringing you up to date on what's really happening in the poverty industry, in the mental health industry, how our governments, where our money is really going. So I wanted to expand on that because I got a whole bunch of people replying to me wanting to know a little bit more of what actually is happening in our Canadian cities. In this case, our nation's capital, what's going on in Washington, D.C., what's going on in San Francisco, what's going on in parts of New York City, what's going on in Portland. A lot of the same things are going on in some Canadian cities, not all, but the city of Ottawa, we're an hour from the city of Ottawa. You couldn't drag my ass into that city unless my life depended on it. So I have a really good friend who has worked on the streets in the nation's capital for the last 32 years. He works in the mental health industry, works for the largest mental health facility in Canada, and he gets paid $75,000 a year, and he literally puts on a backpack every day, Monday to Friday, and he ventures downtown. And his goal over the last 3 decades has been to help as many people that are suffering from addiction, from mental health issues, struggling with homelessness, to help them get back on their feet. That's his job. And it sounds like an incredible job description. And my friend is one of the kindest, most compassionate, most empathetic men I've ever had the pleasure of being around. This guy has been an ally of mine for probably 45 years. But one of the stories that he tells me about what really happens on the streets, what really happens with homelessness, what really happens in the trenches of our city, that my all-time favorite story is about a guy that makes over $2,000 a day as a homeless man in our nation's capital. My wife Krista and I actually rented a home in the city way back in 2019, the year my junior hockey team won the Barclay Cup. We commuted an hour, so then we rented a house, and my daughter Emery went to school in grade 1 in Ottawa. We found a school, a Montessori school, that we wanted her to attend in grade 1. My wife rented a house in downtown Ottawa, and we lived there for that 1 year. One of the best years of my life, professionally and personally. And I was out having a beer and some pizza one night with my pal who works on the streets, and he goes, Michael, he says, what exit do you take off of the freeway? When you're coming in from the town, what exit do you take to come downtown to your house? And I said, well, I take this street. And he's like, okay. He goes, let me tell you a story about one of my most infamous clients. He calls these guys, these cast of characters, this motley crew, they're his clients. And he's got files, you know, 6 inches thick, literally files that are 30 years of guys that are, you know, they got 8 kids to 8 different women. They've been on the street, they've been in jail, they've been in prison, they've been in county, they've been in rehab, they've been in detox, and they just keep having kids, right? So he's got files on hundreds and hundreds of these guys that walk the streets. So he says, but this guy is the next level. He said, you know, when you come down off of the Queensway, the freeway, he said, and you stop at that red light, which is one of the main streets in Ottawa? I said, yes. He said, you know that guy that has a couch set up at the red light on the sidewalk, right beside the sidewalk? And I said, yeah, we see that guy almost every second day. He said, do you know that that guy makes over $2,000 cash per day? And I was like, well, I mean, I was doing the math one time when he was panhandling and knocking on our window, but I had no idea. I thought he might make a couple $100 and, you know, whatever. And he said, oh, you have no idea. He said, it's like dealing with the Godfather. He said, first of all, we've defunded the police, so they can do next to nothing with that guy. He's been in and out of prison his whole life. He's one of these guys who's got all kinds of kids he's never met. He's just a plague on society. But he said, you know that couch that's sitting at the red light that he sits on? He said he's had that couch there for years and years and years. So he said he'll sit on that couch from 7 in the morning, rush hour, till 12 noon, okay? And literally at every red light, and the light is always red, people are on the off ramps, they're all sitting there. I've gone through it. And he literally walks up and down. There'll be 30 cars parked at every red light. And he walks up and literally he has a Tim Hortons cup and he's begging for money, right? The thing you have to remember if you're American is we have our loonies are dollars, and we have a coin called a toonie. So people have change in their cars, right? So they're not tossing in quarters and nickels and pennies. In Canada, people have loonies, dollars, and these $2 coins that they're always trying to get rid of, right? It's too much change. So this guy walks up and down every red light, 20 cars, 30 cars, whatever, very aggressive. He used to knock on our window if I didn't roll it down, which didn't help him because I told him to go fuck himself. But anyway, he fills like literally $1, $2, $5. These people pleasers and these do-gooders, and they're being shamed. They're being bullied, literally bullied into this. And I would say 50% of the cars give him money. So he's sitting there and he said, that guy is making hundreds of dollars an hour, Michael. He's making hundreds of dollars an hour. He's going, thousands and thousands of cars stop at that red light in the morning session, especially during rush hour. And he's a big guy. He's all covered in tattoos. He's got tats, jailhouse tats all over his neck, all over his hands. He's a big guy. He's an aggressive guy. And he literally just walks up 30 cars, next 30 cars. And when you see this cat coming towards you, you know, if you're a person who's can be intimidated, all of a sudden you have this 250-pound tattooed covered homeless guy, so-called homeless guy with the cup out, and he's not afraid to knock on your windshield to ask you for money. So He makes $2,000. My buddy goes, he makes over $2,000 a day. He said, do the math, Michael. He goes, people are putting in $2, $3, $5. Some people give him $10 and $20. And he's got the couch there. So when things aren't busy, he's sitting his ass on the couch and he's sitting there smoking, right? So he says, my friend says, well, guess what? He says, this guy is a true entrepreneur. He said, just like in the prisons and just like the mafia or just like anywhere else where intimidation rules, right? And territory matters. He said he rents out, he leases out the couch and the spot the rest of the day. I was like, pardon? He said he sits there from the early morning till noon or 1 o'clock until he makes his $2,000. And then he rents out and leases out the couch in the afternoon for the afternoon rush hour to somebody else. And then my friend says he rents out the evening. So he's got two other homeless people that are renting out the couch, leasing out the couch. And my buddy says, you don't dare go near his spot. There's nobody else around, no other homeless people. And he said, you do not dare go into his territory, near that spot, near that street, near that off-ramp, or near that couch, or it's going to be a big problem. And I was like, are you joking? And he said, I wish I was. He said, so he says, not only is he making thousands of dollars day after day cash, he's also renting out the spot. And my friend said this started about 10 or 12 years ago when people started to see that this is one of the best spots in the city to panhandle, and they started encroaching on his territory. And he said, this guy beat the living shit out of somebody, almost killed him. And from that day on, he marked that as his territory. And if he's not there, he's renting out that spot to one of the two other so-called homeless people. He said, Michael, but it gets better. He goes, and this guy's one of my so-called clients. He said he gets a check for $2,000 a month welfare from the federal government. $2,000 for housing, for rent, for whatever. And he said, this guy, he said he's not homeless. And he said on top of that, he gets a check for hygiene halfway through the month, like $75. And, you know, he's got access to the food bank. He's got access to medical. He's got access to education. He's got access to anything and anything you want, right? And this guy knows how to do it. So you do the math on that. Are you making $2,000 cash a day? Is your food paid for? Is your rent paid for? Is your medical all taken care of? If you want to say, oh, I'm going to turn my life around, is your college education going to be paid for? Do you have therapists? Is all your medicine, your depression medicine and all this other stuff that these guys, they use, is that all taken care of? So like my friend calls it, and I mean, he only talks to me candidly about this. He's like, he calls it the poverty industry. And it's the same in the United States, especially in the blue states. But it's called the poverty industry. In our downtown of Ottawa, I mean, it's not even safe to go down there anymore. I compare it to those American cities that used to be so nice to walk around in. Krista and I and some friends went down to the market area to celebrate my birthday of last week, and 10 homeless people approached me aggressively. They don't get a fucking dime from me. And I let Krista and my guests off in front of the restaurant so they didn't have to deal with it. There was a young girl, probably in her, early 30s, sitting on the street out in front, eating a Subway submarine sandwich, and big sign, need money, and aggressive, and 10 people in total I walk 5 minutes to the parking lot, 6 on the way and 4 on the way home. You know, people that are highly intoxicated, mentally ill, aggressive, asking me. I don't mind that stuff. Like I'm a protector. I'm comfortable in those situations. But I mean, boy, oh boy, I wouldn't want any of my loved ones down in some of these cities. I don't know, like, if I have a message other than it ain't going to get better, friend. It ain't going to get better. And it's getting worse by the day. And I just keep going back to the advice that my mentor, Dan Kennedy, gave me, and the reason we moved to Naples 3 years ago with all the nonsense going on here in Canada. With my business being closed, the schools closed, the rinks closed, the parks closed, you know, small businesses closed. Dan said to me, "You're not a tree, Michael. You're not a tree. You can move. You're not rooted in any one place. I know you grew up there, but you're not a tree. You can move." And Kennedy said, you know, those big green signs out on the freeway, he said, those are exits to other places. So I talked to Marc Andre, my business partner. Marc Andre's 26 and he has a home in the city. And I talked to him yesterday and I was telling him this story, and I said, you know, I said, when you get married and when you have children down the road, I said, I see you living in a small community, maybe a small town like we live in, maybe a very select city like Naples, but I see maybe even in the country. But because he can work anywhere, most of us can work anywhere, you don't have to put up with the nonsense and the danger now that exists in these cities, Canada and the United States. Like, we live there admittedly in 2019, but I'm telling you, since all of the stuff that's gone on, like that, the last 5 years have made it's 10x. 10x is bad. So I could never envision myself living in any city. And Naples is a vacuum. It truly is a vacuum. But I mean, I just see intelligent people moving to the country, moving to what I call one traffic light towns where you're safe, you know your neighbors, your kids and your grandkids can be out on their bicycles, they can be out playing. You know, you have that small town, old-fashioned feel. And I just couldn't imagine. I just could not imagine raising a family or living in any of these cities. So my message, I guess, to you is, if you're not happy where you're living, the city, if you're not happy with the town or the city, if you're not happy with what's going on in your state or your province, or even if you're like us and I wasn't happy with what was going on in our country, you're not a tree. You're not rooted. You can move. It's not easy because we're creatures of comfort, right? But moving can be one of the most transformational experiences. Like, literally, it will catapult you out of your comfort zone. When we packed up in 7 days and moved to a new state, a new country, a new school, and Naples, it literally made me feel like I'm 10 years younger. That's the power of moving. We all get in a rut. We all get in slumps from time to time. But nothing is more powerful than lighting a fire under your ass than moving. And I mean, it was Dan Lazonis, my daughter's teacher, homeschool teacher, who always talks about the power of moving. Him and his family, they've lived in London, England. They've lived in multiple states, New York City, Florida. They've been all over the country. And it's just been an incredible experience for his wife, his 2 children, and himself. He's like, it's like rocket fuel. It just reignites you. So this is my personal experience moving to a different country. I'm always excited to get back home to Canada. I'm always excited to get back to Naples in 6 months. And that's all because of moving. And you know, if a place like Naples changes and it becomes like other places, you know, you have all these people bring all their their baggage with them, well, in that case, we'll move from Naples. If things in a small community like this become unsafe or continue to decline, then we'll buy 200, 400 acres and build a home in the country. Because with the internet and with artificial stupidity, you can literally, work from almost anywhere with a strong internet connection. So you're not trapped in the city anymore. You're not trapped in a condominium. You're not trapped in an apartment. You're not trapped in an unsafe neighborhood. You're not a tree. You can move. You're not a tree. You can move. That's my message. I wanted to bring that story to you because I'll tell you right now, it's the biggest scam going inside our borders. We send hundreds of millions of dollars to terrorist groups. We send hundreds of millions of dollars to third world countries. The money ends up in the hands of the dictators and the cartel, and it's just a fucking joke. But inside our borders, one of the biggest scams going, and it's been going on for decades and decades and decades, is the poverty industry, is the mental health industry, is the pharmaceutical industry. And it all goes back to that main theme that I talk about all the time, that you need to do the exact opposite of everybody around you. Okay, the gravitational pull in society, whether your kids are in school or you're watching the news or you're watching TV or you're participating in anti-social media, just remember that rat poison will destroy your life. That rat poison will destroy your life because we're all being brainwashed and we're all being indoctrinated. That's just human life. I'm choosing to be brainwashed by books, people that I respect, things that I'm doing, walking, reading, writing, eating clean, going to the gym. So we're all brainwashed. That's not an issue. But it's what you choose to be brainwashed with. If you're watching mainstream news or you're following politics or you carry a cell phone with you all the time or you participate in pro sports or anti-social media or any of this stuff, you're being brainwashed. Brainwashed by Big Brother, Big Tech, big media, and big government. And all of those massive Goliaths, I call them. You're David. I'm David. You're David. I'm David. They're Goliath. And Goliath is selling you every day, brainwashing you every day, because Goliath wants you sick. He wants you fat. He wants you depressed. He wants you anxious. He wants you addicted. He wants you medicated. He wants you alone. He wants you unhappy. And then they want you dead in the end. So you got to do the exact opposite. You got to stop those inputs at the core. Like, I couldn't watch the news. I don't have any access to it. I can't participate in anti-social media. I don't have any access to it. I watch barely any pro sports, and if I do, it's just the game. I know what goes on as a voter, but I don't have access to the fake politics or any of the bought and paid media. So for me, I'm purposely brainwashing myself with things that serve me, that help me become a badass top 1%er and help me live life and do business on my own terms. I choose my inputs. I choose what goes in here. I choose what goes in my mouth. I choose what I do with my body. And that's the direct opposite of what Big Brother wants. So just keep this in mind that, these are industries, the homeless industry, the poverty industry, the mental health industry, the pharmaceutical industry, big media is an industry, big tech is an industry. And just keep in mind that these people are evil and corrupt to the core. Evil and corrupt to the core. They don't wish you the best. They don't wish your wife the best. They don't wish your children the best. In fact, it's the polar opposite. And I share this story here today just to let you know of the horse shit that goes on that's beyond your control. There's no sense, by the way, getting fired up about this stuff. For me, as a 56-year-old king, badass husband, father, community service person, I just control the controllable. I'm not going to be able to change the homeless industry, the poverty industry, the pharmaceutical. All I can control is what happens inside my home. So these are the messages that I'm relaying to my queen, my child, people like you. But control the controllable. But as far as getting in arguments about politics and the news and elections and all this other stuff, I just let it all go. I'm too wise for that. I now just focus on Michael McLean being the best father, husband, leader that I can be. And if I can't control it, then I don't focus on it. As frustrating as that is, if I can't control it, I focus. And what's most important to me as a king is what happens at my kitchen table, what happens inside my roof, what happens inside my home, what happens inside my marriage. And I say it a million times a year, what happens in your house, is way, way more important than happens in the White House. You don't have control of anything that happens in the White House. You have 100% control of what happens inside your own house. And that, my friend, is the way we gradually change things. That's how we change society. That's how we improve things. What goes on in each person's house. Run your own race, okay? Stop comparing yourself to other people. Ask yourself consistently, how can I improve? What do I want? And chase those dreams. Live your life by your values, by your mission, and just let the stuff that you cannot control, get it out of your life and focus on controlling the controllable. That's a massive saying in our home, control the controllable. A problem at school, can we control that? A problem here, you can control yourself. Getting to the gym, eating clean. You can control your fitness, your health. You can control your relationship with your wife. You can control how you raise your children. You can control how much money you make. You can control what you work on. You can control what you focus on. You're in control of the major things. And the secret, like the great Warren Buffett says, it's what you decide not to focus on that separates the champions from the chumps. What you say no to, vitamin N, is absolutely the secret to success. Control the controllable. The reason I'm out here walking is because the bugs are so bad at this time at the lake. I can't take the dog and I can barely walk, but it's not an excuse. It's not an excuse. And I don't ever miss a day. And I don't miss when it's cold, when it's raining, when it's snowing. I don't miss when I'm traveling. I don't miss when there's bugs. I don't miss when it's 100 degrees out. I don't miss. So that's the reason I'm out here walking on these rural paths and farmers' fields, is because I don't miss. Violent consistency. There's bugs, it's hot, it's humid, all that. Doesn't make any difference. Nobody gives a shit about my excuses. Nobody cares about my whining. I'm here to deliver. I've made a promise to myself. I keep my word to myself. I look at myself in the mirror and I get the job done, and I stack the wins every day. Nobody's coming. Nobody cares about my whining and complaining and crying. I show up every single day. You show up every day. Stop lying to the man in the mirror. Keep your word to yourself. Build your personal integrity and control the controllable inside your world. Control the controllable inside your world. Download a free copy of my book below, 5 Ways to Unfuck Your Life in the Next 30 Days. It's my free gift to you. Do not download that book unless winning is your sport, okay? I don't need any cupcakes or snowflakes or virtue signaling poodles or deballed house cats. It's for elite, generous, and driven men that are trying to get even better. And that's what my book is for. Champions, not chumps. Kings, not poodles. The link is below, brassballsvideos.com. 2 words that changed my life, 2 words that'll change yours. Be relentless.